Right, well, with that, we better get to some sales news here. And I thought this was incredible. So I don't know if you've looked into this, Victor, and this is relatively new out in the last past few days. And it's just a patent, but clearly to patent something, there's got to be something behind it. So I'm quoting here from patentlyapple.com, who seemingly has a whole business and blog around rummaging through Apple patents. An Apple patent envisages a completely new virtual store experience with avatar salespeople that can make presentations about products and more. Victor.
Let me stop you. First of all, let me stop you right here because you're confusing my U.S. audience already. Will by patent means patents here in the U.S. That's what he means. So we're trying to bridge the gap across the ocean, folks. That's all we're trying to do here. But yes,
we're trying to correct the Americanisms here. That's what we're trying to do on this show. That's a good 13% of our content. So the US, to be fair, we're talking about a US patent. Is that the correct term? US Patent and Trademark Office published a patent application from Apple that relates to it, advancing the experience of buying devices. Basically, what Apple are trying to do is give instantaneous feedback, answer to questions, demonstrations of products, and a human connection of the in-person shopping experience, but without real people. And this is clearly brought on by both COVID and other things as well. I think Apple have been at the forefront of closing all their stores and making a big deal and getting loads of PR about it as soon as there is an outbreak of COVID in cities, rather than trying to grab those last few iPhone sales before they're forced to close. So it's probably on the back of that. But with this, Victor, let me ask you this question. Is B2C sales dead? If Apple can pull this off, has it just wiped out B2C sales?
Mm-hmm. There was an engineering term I learned many years ago. It's one of my favorite engineering terms. It's asymptotic. Asymptotic. When something approaches zero but never gets to zero, right? And so I think B2C sale is on an asymptotic decline. It'll never go away, but it's moving towards zero. You know, the whole thing about even, look at Amazon. Amazon's talking about 0 clicks. Forget the one-click buy. 0 click means they'll predict what you want. So in this CGI or CGR environment, it's like putting a virtual body on Alexa or Siri. Isn't that kind of what we're talking about? That you'll walk in, you'll be able to talk to Siri or Alexa and say, hey, here's kind of what I'm looking for. What do you think? And so is that going to be part of the process? Absolutely. The customer experience is all about reducing that friction. And this is a major step. I think it's brilliant. And by the way, I don't think this is too far off, Will. What do you think?
I don't think it's far off at all. And just to carry on the post here from Patently Apple. So there's multiple elements to this. There is a complete virtual avatar solution, and then there is a avatar which is a human person that you just you're communicating with virtually. So the post says, the techniques described in Apple's patent filing cover the ability to provide real-time communications with a remote salesperson via a virtual communication session. Maybe that's going to be a new Apple term, virtual communication session, who can guide a user through the shopping experience in a CGR environment. Now, the issue I've got with this is the Apple Store is pretty sterile as it is. Right. I don't know, Bo. I assume it's ubiquitous the way that the store is presented worldwide. I think that's part of the shtick with the Apple stores, right? So I've only really bought one thing from there. I've been in when other people have bought other things. I bought my MacBook from there, and the person comes over to you. There's no till. You swipe your card right in front of where you're kind of playing with the toy essentially, and it's a cool experience. But part of that experience is a human being comes over to you and asks you questions and essentially closes the deal, as opposed to they're not really doing a real consulting session with you or anything like that. Maybe Apple have different ways of selling when you're with the Xserve servers and the higher end music production and Mac Pro stuff. You're spending 20 grand on a Mac. I probably want more than a virtual connection to discuss it. But with that said, part of the allure of it all is that someone does come to you. So I don't know how they're going to physically do this. I don't know if there's going to be a station where you walk over and there's a laptop or computer or phone that you want to buy, and then above it there's a big screen with an Apple TV attached and you're talking through the screen. That might be a little bit sterile, weird, and too Apple, if that makes sense. Maybe it would take a little bit of the magic away.
Yeah, I love that phrase. It's too Apple. That's a really interesting phrase. You know what? As you were talking about this, I was thinking kiosk. Like you ever go like to McDonald's or something, they have kiosks, right?
Sure.
Now, you notice that people still want it, unless if there's a huge line, people will line up at the kiosk. But if there's not a huge line, they still want that human interaction. And sometimes using the kiosk is really cumbersome. Option, click, click. So that increases friction. Where it's easier, and I think I'm with you on this one, is I still want to talk to a person. So if they can get the AI to that level where it's very seamless, then if they can't do it, then I would rather just talk to a human being. So interesting direction, though.
Sure. Okay, we'll move on from that.
Will, can I add that maybe for some of the simpler products, like if you're just buying a phone or some accessories, that that might work. But I think if you're trying to put together, let's say, a system, by that means you're buying one of those Mac Pro towers or something, with liquid cooling, and you need somebody to really talk to, then I think that would need an individual.
But it's interesting, and there'll be data on this for sure. Someone who's buying an iPhone is probably less informed about the product than someone who is buying a Mac Pro. Someone who's buying a Mac Pro has probably done a ton of research. Maybe they work in the audio production industry. They've used Macs all their lives. Versus your grandma might be buying an iPhone and might really need to sit down with one of the, what they call them, Apple geniuses and have a chat with them. So I don't know whether price is a good indicator on how high a touch you need to be with some of these things. Of course, if you are spending 20 grand on a Mac Pro, there's revenue and budget to get someone in front of you, clearly, versus $1,000 iPhone. There might be less revenue and budget to do it. But Apple, a lot of what they're doing is based on this Apple magic, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can pull it off. If they can pull it off, they've won the game. Everyone will copy them, and they'll have obliterated the market for B2C. But if they can't quite pull it off, I'm open to see kind of how it plans out.
I go back to your phrase. It may be too Apple, and maybe overshoot the mark a little bit. So yeah, love that. Great point.